The rails run straight for 11 miles. The grade is gentle. The ballast is sound. At the far end, the platform stands empty. The telegraph operator checks his watch. He steps outside. He looks down the track. There is nothing. The train was seen entering. It should be here. It is not. The locomotive crosses the timber bridge at 2:15 in the afternoon. 3 men watch from the embankment below. They see 16 freight cars behind the tender. The train is moving at normal speed. Smoke rises vertically in still air. The engineer does not signal distress. The fireman is visible in the cab. The train passes into the cutting where exposed rock rises on both sides. The sound of the wheels fades into the forest beyond. The men return to their work. There is nothing unusual to report. The section ahead is isolated. It was cut through dense timber 5 years earlier. On the eastern side, the forest remains uncleared to within yards of the roadbed. On the western side, rock faces show tool marks from excavation. The track runs straight. There are no curves. There are no major grades. The distance to the next station is 11 miles. The train is expected to arrive at 2:30. The locomotive is a standard 440 design. The cars carry textiles, hardware, bagged grain. The total weight is moderate. The crew consists of an engineer, a fireman, and a conductor riding in the caboose. All 3 men are experienced. The weather is clear. Visibility is unlimited. No storm is approaching. The train enters the section under conditions that suggest nothing but routine transit. At the station behind, the operator logs the departure. He notes the time and the consist. He sends word ahead by telegraph. The message is acknowledged. The operator at the far end prepares to log the arrival. He steps onto the platform. He waits. The minutes pass. The train does not appear. By 3 o'clock, the platform remains empty. The operator returns to his instrument. He sends an inquiry back down the line. The response comes within minutes. The train was observed entering the section at the expected time. No delay was reported. No signal indicated trouble. The operator walks to the edge of the platform again. He looks west along the track. The rails stretch into the distance, straight and empty. He can see nearly a mile. There is no smoke. There is no train. He considers the possibilities. A coupling may have failed. A journal box may have overheated. The engineer may have stopped to inspect the locomotive. These things happen. They cause delays. They do not cause silence. A stopped train can be seen. Smoke still rises from the firebox. The crew would walk back along the track to report the trouble. None of these things has occurred. At 3:30, the station master is informed. He questions the operator. The answers are consistent. The train entered on schedule. It did not arrive. No word has been received from the crew. The station master instructs the operator to send further inquiries. Messages travel back and forth along the wire. No station reports an arrival. No siding reports a diversion. The train has not appeared anywhere along the division. The station master walks the platform. He examines the track. The rails are aligned. The ballast is undisturbed. There is no sign of impact. There is no sign of derailment. He returns to the station house. He authorizes a search. A handcar is prepared. 2 men are assigned to travel the section. They depart before 4 o'clock. Their instructions are clear. Follow the track. Look for wreckage. Look for crew. Report anything unusual. The handcar moves slowly along the main line. The 2 men pump the handles in steady rhythm. They watch the track ahead. The rails gleam in the afternoon light. The ties are evenly spaced. The ballast shows no disturbance. They pass the first mile marker. The forest presses close on the left. The rock cutting rises on the right. There is no debris. There are no torn rails. There is no sign that a train has left the roadbed. They stop at intervals to examine the track more closely. They crouch beside the rails. They look for scrape marks. They look for bent spikes. They look for shifted ties. They find nothing. The track is intact. The alignment is perfect. They continue. At the second mile, the cutting deepens. The rock walls rise higher. The forest thickens. The men slow their pace. They search the shadows beneath the trees. They see nothing. They call out. Their voices echo off the stone. There is no response. They move on. The 3rd mile passes. The 4th. The handcar continues through the section. The men grow quiet. They pump the handles without speaking. The sun lowers behind the trees. Shadows lengthen across the track. They reach the halfway point. They stop. They step off the handcar. They walk forward along the rails. They examine the roadbed on foot. The surface is smooth. The drainage ditches are clear. There is no sign of passage beyond the normal wear of daily traffic. They discuss what they have seen. They discuss what they have not seen. A derailment leaves evidence. Rails are bent. Ties are shattered. Ballast is scattered. None of these signs are present. A train that leaves the rails does so violently. The evidence is unmistakable. The men have found no evidence. They return to the handcar. They continue toward the far end of the section. The light fades. The men reach the 8th mile. The 9th. They are now within sight of the eastern station. The track ahead is visible. It is empty. They complete the journey. They arrive as dusk settles over the platform. They report to the station master. They tell him the track is clear. They tell him there is no wreckage. They tell him the train is not there. A second search is organized at first light. This time, more men are involved. They are instructed to expand the search beyond the main line. They are to examine the shoulders. They are to search the forest edge. They are to look for any place a train might have gone. The section is divided. Teams are assigned to each mile. They depart in both directions along the track. The team assigned to the 4th mile begins at the western end. They walk slowly eastward. They inspect the ground on both sides of the roadbed. The forest is dense here. Undergrowth blocks visibility beyond a few yards. They push into the trees. They find nothing. They return to the track and continue. One of the men notices a gap in the vegetation. It is not wide. It is not obvious. He stops. He looks more carefully. The gap follows a straight line away from the main track. He calls to the others. They approach. They examine the ground. Beneath the weeds and low branches, they find rails. The rails are old. They are lighter in section than the main line. They are rusted. Grass grows between the ties. The men follow the rails into the trees. The siding curves gently away from the main line. It was built years earlier to serve a now abandoned lumber camp. It was used briefly. It was forgotten. The switch that connects it to the main line was never removed. The men return to the junction. They clear the weeds around the switch. The mechanism is stiff. The points are corroded, but the throw rod is intact. The switch was left in the mainline position, or it should have been. One of the men crouches beside the mechanism. He examines the position of the points. He looks at the locking pin. The pin is not fully seated. The points rest between positions, not fully closed to the main line, not fully open to the siding, but open enough. They send word back to the station. More men arrive. The siding is traced deeper into the forest. It runs for half a mile before curving sharply to the north. The rails disappear into heavy timber. The men follow on foot. The undergrowth becomes impassable. They are forced to walk along the rails themselves. The ties are rotted. The ballast has sunk. The men move carefully. They find the train at the end of the siding. The locomotive rests on its trucks. The cars are still coupled. The train is upright. There is no derailment. The wheels remain on the rails. The rails themselves have sunk into soft ground. The siding was never ballasted properly. The weight of the train has pressed the ties deep into the earth. But the train did not overturn. It did not leave the rails. It simply came to rest. The crew is found nearby. The explanation is brief. They felt no impact. They did not realize they had left the main line. The siding diverged so gradually that the transition was imperceptible. The train continued at speed. The engineer noticed the unfamiliar surroundings only after the forest closed in. He applied the brakes. The train slowed. The rails sank beneath the weight. The train stopped. The crew attempted to reverse. The locomotive's drivers spun without traction. They were stranded. The men who found the train walk back along the siding to the switch. They examine the geometry of the junction. The angle of divergence is slight. The curve is gentle. A train moving at moderate speed would pass through the switch without derailment. The wheel flanges would guide the trucks onto the siding rails. There would be no jolt, no grinding, no indication of trouble until the engineer looked out and realized the surroundings had changed. The switch mechanism is studied. The points were not fully in the mainline position. The gap between the point rail and the stock rail was narrow, but it was enough. A train approaching at speed does not require a wide gap. The flanges on the wheels are tapered. They are designed to guide the wheel set laterally. When the leading wheels encountered the open points, the flanges contacted the point rail. The lateral force was small, the wheels shifted, the truck followed. The train followed the truck. The switch was not designed to allow this. It was designed to be locked in position. But the locking pin had corroded. The mechanism had been neglected. The switch was installed when the siding was active. When the siding was abandoned, the switch remained. It was assumed to be locked. It was assumed to be safe. It was neither. The train passed through the switch without resistance. The wheels made no sound beyond the normal rolling noise. There was no scraping. There was no impact. The train simply followed the rails that were presented to it. The rails led into the forest. The train followed. It continued until the rails could no longer support its weight. Then it stopped. The recovery takes 3 days. A work train is brought in. The siding is cleared. Temporary ballast is laid. The stranded train is pulled back to the main line. The switch is removed. The siding is torn up. The rails are salvaged. The ties are left to rot. The forest reclaims the ground. Within a year, no visible trace remains. The incident is recorded in division logs. The language is factual. A train was diverted onto an abandoned siding due to a misaligned switch. The crew was unharmed. The rolling stock was undamaged. The cause was identified as inadequate maintenance of unused infrastructure. Recommendations were made. Switches on abandoned sidings were to be spiked in the mainline position or removed entirely. The recommendations were implemented. The incident reveals something else. It reveals how completely a train obeys the rails beneath it. A train does not choose its path. It follows the geometry it is given. If the rails curve, the train curves. If the rails diverge, the train diverges. The flanges ensure this. The wheelsets cannot resist. A train can vanish from a main line not through catastrophe, but through simple redirection. It can leave the expected path without violence, without noise, without any sign that something has gone wrong. The men who searched the main line saw nothing because there was nothing to see. The train did not derail. It did not crash. It simply turned. The turn was invisible from the main line. The siding was hidden. The forest absorbed the train, and for a time, the train was simply gone. The system that guided the train onto the siding was the same system that kept it on the main line every other day. Rails guide, flanges follow. The difference between presence and absence can be a matter of inches, a switch left open, a pin not seated, a curve into the trees. The train obeys. It always obeys. And sometimes, obedience leads away from the intended path. The rails still run straight through that section. The forest still presses close. The rock cutting still rises on the western side. Trains pass through daily. They are observed entering. They arrive on schedule. The switches are maintained. The sidings are mapped. The system is understood. But the understanding came after. It came after a train entered a section and did not emerge. It came after men walked 11 miles and found nothing. It came after the forest was searched, and the rails were traced, and the train was discovered where it should not have been. The train vanished without derailing because it did not need to derail. It only needed to follow the rails it was given. And for a brief time, those rails led nowhere expected.